is Aurora Perez, and I'm going to tell you something about my background. I was born in 1924, and my parents were Isabel and Misak Chiganjian. My father was born, I believe, in 1892, and he came to America as a young boy. I would say at about 1910, and lived with his sister, who was married to. Her name was Herakel, and she was married to Shemamian. And he lived with them, and in 1914, when the Armenian massacres started, he and a contingent of Armenian boys went by ship back to Armenia to fight for their country. And in about 1917, when the war was over, he met my mother, who was then working in an orphanage for the children that had been driven from their homes and who had lost parents. And he fell in love with my mother. They got married, and they took the train to Paris and left from Le Havre in France for the United States. They arrived at Ellis Island, and we have certificates verifying their arrival, and settled in the Armenian district in Manhattan, which was in the on 28th Street, 29th Street, between 2nd and 3rd and Lexington Avenue, which became a good Armenian restaurant district. And our church was nearby, and we all went to church frequently. It became a very integral part of our upbringing. We also went to the Episcopalian church for all of the so-called American activities. We went to camp, and but our mainstay was the Armenian church, and that has now become a cathedral. St. Vartan's is now on 35th Street and 1st Avenue. At the time, it was on 30th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, so you can see that it was just 2 blocks away. And the Armenian community was really tightly knit. The groceries were Armenian, all of the stores were Armenian in that area, so that I had no need to learn English until I went to school. And I could not speak any English until I went to school. But this was true of all the immigrant children at that time. We lived in an apartment house that had gaslight in the hallways. We had no telephone. And there were very few cars on the streets, too, so that we could play in the streets and feel safe. We used to play stickball, and there was a firehouse on the end of our street, and they would open up their sprinklers, and we would all run under the sprinklers and get wet and cool in the summertime. But mainly we went to camp. We went to Incarnation Camp in Iverton, Connecticut, every summer, and there I learned all my athletics. And I learned by that time I was speaking English pretty fluently. But we went to Armenian school every day. And we learned to read and write in Armenian. And my father would test us for our reading. And we became we became the crossover generation because we had the old mother country to contend with and we had the new America to contend with. And for us, that bridging, we were the bridge generation, was very, very tough because our parents had very strict rules and we had to abide by their needs. My father's brothers were Apet, Nago, and Misak, which is Abednego, Misak, Abednego. A very biblical country, and many, many people were killed because of their religion. This was genocide, and my mother lost.
Yeah.
My mother lost 7 brothers. Was slaughtered.
Good Lord.
And in Armenia.
Yeah.
My mother and her mother were driven from their homes. They were pretty wealthy because they had all the businesses in the town. And my grandmother, whose name was Antaram, was a good business person. And when she lost all her sons, the woman was, of course, devastated. She took her one daughter. My mother was the youngest daughter. And they walked for 6 months. And she was an elderly lady and died on the road. But she gave my mother her money belt, which was filled with gold. And I can't talk about it. I'm just
I'm sorry. Sorry.
When my father and mother were living on 28th Street, they needed a livelihood. And my father became a baker. It's about 10. So that would be, I would say, the early 30s.
Okay.
In the early 30s, they began to bake a thing called a kata. Now, this is a round cake, and what was great about this was it was layered. It was tert. So it was really very, very beautifully made. My mother and he would work all night and get these katas ready for delivery to the Armenian stores on Saturday morning. And they would work through the night, and I would go down on Saturday morning and help them to package and maybe even he used to teach me how to put the sesame seeds on these, and he would bake them, and then we would package them, and I would deliver them to all the groceries. And he taught me how to keep a record of the cakes that went. But we became known as Kataji's daughters. The 3 of us were part and parcel of this little business that they had, and it kept us alive. During the day, he would send me to all the grocery stores, and I would shift the katas, to stores that needed more, who had sold more and everything. And of course, all the Armenians would go to these grocery stores from all of the suburban areas and buy their meats and all of their Armenian ingredients for their cooking for the whole week. But they would always buy our kata, and they were wonderful. You would eat that with a cheese. It's called khashar bani, or the Armenian cheese. Then on Sunday, we would take the katas to any of the picnics that they had in Van Cortlandt Park. They had Armenian picnics where the shish kebab was made and all of that. And we would all go, and my father would sell any of the leftover katas too. My father became ill. He had evidently had some kind of gassing during World War I. And this cropped up again later on in life. His lungs gave way, and he was put into a hospital that was in the middle of the East River. I think it was called Welfare Island. And they would isolate anybody who had lung infections and isolate them. So I could not see him, but he used to come to to the edge of the island, and I would wave to him from across the river, and he knew I'd be waiting there. I can't talk about it anymore. He collapsed one lung thinking it would help him. At that time, they did not have the antibiotics that they have now and all the medication that they have. And he would visit with us, and he was in the hospital for 4 years of his last 4 years of life. He died at the age of 47 in 1939.
Yep.
And from then on, at that point, we were living in the Bronx. We had moved up to the Bronx, and my father hated the Bronx. It was 496 East 174th Street. Then we moved to around the corner to 1718 Washington Avenue in the Bronx. And I attended Theodore Roosevelt High School, and I graduated from William Howard Taft, which is up near the Grand Concourse. And I like to say that I was always an Arista student thanks to my father and his emphasis on studying. My father spoke, I think, about 7 languages. He was very articulate too. He was a very bright man, and he was a great backgammon player. And he taught us all to play backgammon. He could not teach my mother. She just refused to really learn. But she had so many other wonderful qualities that we all forgave her. The backgammon thing was, I mean, all he would emphasize was the doorway, the protection, and in Armenian doorway is tur. And he'd say, your tur is open. Don't do that. You know, protect yourself, protect yourself. I began to apply that to my life later on. And I understood that you must have protection and take care of yourself. I think that's part of the whole survival thing that we had. My mother was a survivor. After my mother walked and left her mother to die on that road, she went into Turkey and she was able to buy her freedom. That is, she was able to pay board with the gold that her my grandmother had left her. And my mother was a pretty woman, and she wanted to hang on to my mother because her son was coming back from the wars, and she thought my mother should marry this Turkish soldier or general or whatever he was. She would be an appropriate bride. But my mother, fortunately, he died and did not come back. So from there, my mother went on to work with the American Red Cross for the children, and that was when she met my father. We always ate elegantly. My mother always had a lovely cloth down and made us wonderful meals. There was no lowering of standards at all, no matter how difficult things got. And I always admired that about my mother. She had pride and fortitude, and I hope my children have that too.
Guardi le stelle che
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, and saw it through without exemption. I planned each target course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing. And now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that. And may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a woman? What has she got? If not herself, then she has not to say the things she truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day. in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be